By the way, the Border Patrol 2 weeks ago gave us the strongest endorsement you've ever heard. They said he's the greatest president in history and the best president on the border by a factor of 10.
Welcome back to Jaxcey. Today, we're diving into a surprising story that's stirring up a lot of discussion. Former President George W. Bush has publicly congratulated Donald Trump. Considering the complicated history between the two, this congratulatory message has taken many by surprise. What does it mean for the future of American politics, and how are people reacting? Stay tuned as we break it all down. Former President George W. Bush offered his first statement on the 2024 presidential campaign Wednesday, congratulating former President Donald Trump on his victory. "I congratulate President Trump on his election as 47th President of the United States of America, as well as Vice President-elect J.D. Vance and their families," Bush said. He thanked President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris for their service and highlighted the election's turnout as a sign of the health of our republic and the strength of our democratic institutions. "Laura and I are grateful to the election officials, poll workers, and volunteers who oversaw a free and fair election. We join our fellow citizens in praying for the success of our new leaders at all levels of government," he said. Bush remained notably silent on the 2024 race, declining to endorse a candidate amid calls from Republicans like former Rep. Liz Cheney and former aide Nicole Wallace to throw his support behind Harris. His daughter, Barbara Bush, knocked on doors in battleground Pennsylvania on Harris' behalf. Trump advisor Jason Miller says winning the popular vote would change everything. Trump campaign advisor Jason Miller told CNN on Wednesday that the campaign views former President Donald Trump's expected win with the popular vote changes everything, arguing it gives the president-elect confidence to enact his agenda without fear of alienating a broad swath of the country. As of Wednesday at 10:24 a.m. ET, CNN has not projected that Trump has won the popular vote. "The honeymoon we had in 2016 lasted for about 4 hours before we were getting jumped on about whether we would be unifying," Miller said. Winning the popular vote provides a mandate and a national public confidence to accomplish what he wants to do from the Oval Office, especially with regard to fixing the economy and securing the border. Miller said, from the campaign's view, the entire race boiled down to one key issue, the economy. Those close to Trump have acknowledged in recent hours that while they believe that the border and crime, the other top issues they repeatedly prioritize throughout the 2024 cycle, also played a major role in his success, Americans' concerns about their financial stability is what won them the race. However, Trump's current day one priority is to reinstate his former administration's border policies and reverse those of President Joe Biden, Miller said. More on Trump's victory. Another tactic the campaign believes paid off is the inroads they made with the Arab American community, particularly in the blue wall states of Michigan and Wisconsin. He added, in addition to their success with Black and Latino communities across the battleground states. Trump and his allies are closely tracking which world leaders reach out. Former President Trump and his allies are keeping close track of who reaches out and when, according to multiple sources. Trump, who values loyalty as well as flattery, has reveled in the reach-outs from foreign leaders leading up to the election and asked privately why certain leaders hadn't tried to contact him. World leaders have already begun congratulating the president-elect, including leaders from across Europe and Africa, while a spokesperson for China's foreign ministry said they hope for peaceful coexistence with the United States just before Trump clinched the election. Earlier this year, when it began to look like the former president would win Iowa, Trump kept tabs on which Republicans backed him and when, which formed some of how he dealt with specific individuals. He has done the same thing when it comes to the world stage. Europe not surprised by Trump's win and is no longer the U.S. fragile little sister, EU diplomat tells CNN. Europe was not surprised by Donald Trump's election victory, and European Union members are prepared to defend their values, an EU diplomat told CNN. I really don't feel a hangover atmosphere, the diplomat told CNN regarding the atmosphere in European Council meetings on Wednesday. The EU, the member states, were very well prepared. No surprises. The feeling is now more than ever that the Union is a respectable lady in her 70s, and no longer the fragile little sister of the United States, added the diplomat, who is not permitted to speak on the record about closed-door meetings. They added that the EU is ready to face the challenges of the world and defend its values with all its partners and allies. And that remains, whatever the outcome of the elections here or there can be. Some context. Europe has strongly supported Ukraine's fight against Russia, sending billions of euros in aid and weapons. Ahead of the election, the EU has also worked to increase its own defense capabilities outside of the US-led NATO alliance. Harris whirled in state of shock and disbelief morning after Election Day. Harris campaign aides and allies are in a state of shock and disbelief the morning after Election Day, reeling from their candidate's loss to Donald Trump. Stomach in knots, one source close to the campaign said. Terrible, another source said, describing how they were feeling. Until the end, the Harris campaign had maintained that the election was likely to be close, with the outcome potentially to be determined on the margins in a handful of key states. But the scope of Harris' defeat, even as it was still coming into clearer focus Wednesday morning, was stunning to those who have been working over the past several months to get Harris elected. I knew it was possible, one senior campaign advisor said of a Harris defeat. But this person pointed to the fact that Harris was projected the winner in New Jersey, where she was only ahead of Trump by about 5 percentage points, with most of the votes in, as clarifying. If you're winning New Jersey by 5, there's something bigger at play here, they said. In 2020, Biden had defeated Trump in New Jersey by around 16 percentage points. In the lead-up to election night, Harris campaign officials had projected confidence about the vice president's standing, citing conversations with teams on the ground and internal data. But that confidence evaporated early Wednesday. It was gloomy, another source close to the campaign said, describing the mood among Harris campaign officials overnight. Pennsylvania was the nail in the coffin. The caveats won, the source said. She had all the headwinds. All the numbers were headed the wrong way for her. For many of Harris' campaign aides, the processing of the emotions surrounding the election results are also colliding with the practical implications of the end of any presidential campaign. Many are packing bags and getting ready to vacate the temporary homes they had set up in battleground states as they contemplate what comes next in their careers. Harris, too, will be preparing to leave the Naval Observatory come January. As of Wednesday morning, she had not yet addressed the American public after ultimately skipping her election night party in D.C. the previous evening at Howard University. Vance posts thank you message. I will never stop fighting for all of you. Senator J.D. Vance posted a message of thanks Wednesday morning after the Trump-Vance ticket won the 2024 presidential election. In the message, Vance said he will never stop fighting for all Americans. Thank you to my beautiful wife for making it possible to do this. To President Donald J. Trump for giving me such an opportunity to serve our country at this level. And to the American people for their trust. I will never stop fighting for all of you, Vance posted on X. Vance, 40, will become the first millennial to serve as vice president. Dow surges by more than 1,300 points as Trump is reelected. U.S. stocks rose sharply Wednesday morning following a decisive and consequential victory for former President Donald Trump in Tuesday's U.S. presidential election. The Dow soared 1,334 points, or 3.2% at the market open. The S&P 500 surged 2% higher and the tech-heavy Nasdaq rose by 1.8%. If the Dow maintains its implied gains throughout the trading session, it will mark the sixth best point gain ever for the index, but nowhere close to a record percentage gain. Markets were mostly juiced by the fact that the election was decided relatively quickly. The election and the widely held belief that Trump and his allies could contest the result in courts has served as a cloud over the U.S. economy and stock market in recent months. Markets in particular crave certainty, and the clear path forward will allow companies to adjust their business and hiring plans. There's clarity. We're not going to see another January 6th event. The market is breathing a huge sigh of relief on that, said Michael Block, Chief Operating Officer at Agent Smith. The mainstream consensus was that we weren't going to know, and we know. But stocks may also be reacting to Trump's victory in particular. Trump flipped several swing states from President Joe Biden's 2020 victory, and Republicans also took control of the Senate. Several key House races remain undecided. A so-called red wave could usher in an era of deregulation and other pro-business laws and policies that investors believe could benefit the stock market. CNN's Matt Egan in New York, Anna Kubin and Olesya Dmitrikova in London, Juliana Liu in Hong Kong, and Nicole Goodkind contributed reporting. World leaders are eyeing meetings with Trump, as world leaders send congratulatory messages to President-elect Donald Trump. Their aides are feverishly gaming out how to set up potential meetings with Trump in the coming months. Multiple sources familiar with the early planning efforts explained. World leaders are open to all options, including making trips to New York or Mar-a-Lago, sources said. Many of them are eyeing meetings before Trump's January inauguration. Still, even loose plans have not been sketched out for possible meetings. For now, those who have sent congratulatory messages to Trump are awaiting response from him and his team, as they also work to be in contact with people close to Trump, they said. Foreign leaders are relying on their experience with Trump during his first presidency, when flattery and personal attention paid dividends, as they approach him following his win. One foreign diplomat said there is a better understanding of Trump compared to 2016, which is part of what led to the flood of congratulatory notes even before the race was officially called. The diplomat said in their view, leaders are following a model set by the late Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who headed directly to New York following Trump's victory in 2016 for a meeting at Trump Tower, toting a set of gold-plated golf clubs as a congratulatory gift. Trump's social media stock spikes after his projected win. Donald Trump didn't just win the White House. He also grew more than $1 billion richer Wednesday. Trump Media's stock, which trades under the ticker symbol DJT, spiked 35% in pre-market trading, implying an astounding market value of about $9 billion. Trump is the dominant shareholder in the conservative social media company, which has scant revenue and is losing money. The president-elect's 114.75 million shares are worth about $5.3 billion based on pre-market trading, up from $3.9 billion when trading ended on Election Day. Of course, those are only paper gains, and in practice, it would be difficult for Trump to sell much of those shares without tanking the price. For months, Trump Media has served as a proxy for how traders think the election will end. With Trump's election odds falling, the company's share price crashed to record low after record low in September. But between September 23 and the end of October, Trump Media more than tripled in value, a stunning spike driven by bets that Trump would win the White House. Liz Cheney, all Americans are bound, whether we like the outcome or not, to accept the results of our elections. Former Rep. Liz Cheney is reacting to Donald Trump's win over Vice President Kamala Harris. Our nation's democratic system functioned last night, and we have a new president-elect. All Americans are bound, whether we like the outcome or not, to accept the results of our elections, Cheney said in a post on X. We now have a special responsibility as citizens of the greatest nation on earth, to do everything we can to support and defend our Constitution, preserve the rule of law, and ensure that our institutions hold over these coming 4 years. Citizens across this country, our courts, members of the press, and those serving in our federal, state, and local governments must now be the guardrails of democracy, she continued. Cheney campaigned alongside Harris, urging Republicans to set aside party differences to back the Democrat and reject a candidate she says poses a threat to democracy. Trump allies argue his disciplined 2024 campaign made the difference. People close to the former president are crediting Donald Trump's success, in part, to his 2024 political operation, arguing it was the most disciplined campaign he ever had. They argued that campaign leadership, helmed by political operative Susie Wiles and Chris LaCivita, helped instill a sense of coordinated control across the Republican Party, extending to the RNC, that helped counteract Trump's proclivity to get in his own way. Wiles in particular, who was hired in 2021, was able to maintain her position of power and close personal relationship with Trump throughout, a rarity compared to the former president's past campaigns. A notable success was Trump's ability to expand the electorate, they said. The campaign strategy defined and create first-time voters, as well as low to mid-propensity voters, was a defining tactic that ultimately paid off, first in the caucuses and primaries, and eventually in the general election. It's 8 a.m. on the U.S. East Coast, and CNN projects Trump will win. Here's what you may have missed overnight. If you're just joining our coverage of the 2024 presidential election, good morning. Early this morning, CNN projected Donald Trump will defeat Vice President Kamala Harris and return to the White House. There are several states that are still too close to call, and the vote count is still ongoing. Reaction is coming in. As Trump was declared winner, Republican lawmakers congratulated him on his re-election, including House Speaker Mike Johnson, Senator Lindsey Graham, Senator John Thune, and Senator John Cornyn. Around the world, international leaders have also started congratulating Trump and said they look forward to working with him. A look at the demographics. Notably, some key demographics where the vote swung toward Trump included among women, where Harris' edge with women did not exceed either President Joe Biden's or former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's. Also, Latino voters, and men in particular, swung toward Trump. They have been moving toward Trump since 2016, and Latino men tipped in his favor this year. What to expect Wednesday? Harris has not yet spoken since Trump was declared winner. However, Harris campaign co-chair Cedric Richmond told supporters gathered Tuesday at her election night event at Howard University that Harris will return to the campus Wednesday to address the nation. Trump won by fundamentally remaking the Republican Party, Senator Marco Rubio says. Florida Senator Marco Rubio said on Wednesday he was impressed by the way Donald Trump won the presidency by fundamentally remaking the Republican Party. What I'm most impressed by is not just the size of the victory. I know the number is still growing, but the way Donald Trump won this election. He won it by fundamentally remaking the Republican Party, but I hope also revealing to people that for voters of the United States of America, their primary identity is not their ethnicity. It's not their race. It's what they do for a living. It's who's who they are in their daily lives, Rubio said. Rubio, the son of Cuban immigrants, also touched on the Hispanic vote and said experts were discussing how Trump wouldn't be competitive because celebrities, such as Bad Bunny and Jennifer Lopez, were not supporting him. Trump made gains among Latino men and won that cohort by 8 points, 4 years after losing them by 23 points. It's a result that showed his campaign's efforts to court those voters paid off. These people are workers. These people are fathers and mothers, and they have children, and they own small businesses, and they're employees of a company who is sending a job overseas. They have to be appealed to as Americans because that's what they are, Rubio said. Rubio, who has been one of Trump's most outspoken supporters throughout the campaign, was in attendance last night at the Trump campaign's watch party. African leaders seek to strengthen U.S. relations under new Trump presidency. A number of African leaders have expressed their desire to strengthen their relationships with the United States after congratulating President-elect Donald Trump on his election victory Wednesday. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu extended his heartfelt congratulations, saying he trusts that President Trump will bring the world closer to peace and prosperity. Zimbabwe's President Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa also congratulated Trump, writing that the world needs more leaders who speak for the people. Zimbabwe stands ready to work with you and the American people to build a better, more prosperous, and more peaceful world. Liberia's President George Weah called Trump's election a dawn of a new beginning for the American people and marks an opportunity for renewed hope. Cyril Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa, said on social media that he also looks forward to continuing the close and mutually beneficial partnership between our two nations across all domains of our cooperation. Some context. In 2018, Trump sparked outrage after reportedly venting frustration over the U.S. welcoming people from shithole countries, including Africa. African diplomats to the United Nations called his comment outrageous, racist, and xenophobic. Despite this, in 2020, data released by the Pew Research Center showed that most Kenyans and Nigerians, and 42% of South Africans, believe that Trump will do the right thing regarding world affairs. Meanwhile, Republicans will flip the Senate, CNN projects, shifting balance of power in Washington. Republicans will win the U.S. Senate majority, CNN projects, shifting the balance of power in Washington and putting the chamber in position to boost of Donald Trump's presidency. With several races still to be declared, Republicans now have 52 seats in the chamber and will assume control under a yet-to-be-chosen Republican leader when the new Congress convenes in January. The Senate takeover was the first big success of the night for Republicans, while the destiny of the House of Representatives, where the GOP is trying to defend its narrow majority, remains up in the air. The new GOP Senate will be in a position to back Trump's agenda and to resume the ex-president's significant reshaping of the judiciary with scores more conservatives. The Republican march to control started early on election night when West Virginia Gov. Jim Justice was projected to pick up the Senate seat vacated by retiring Democrat-turned-independent Senator Joe Manchin. Democrats had stopped contesting the seat after Manchin announced he wouldn't seek re-election. In Ohio, Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown, who has served in the chamber for 3 terms, will lose his re-election bid, CNN projects, in a state that has gone from a perennial political bellwether during his tenure to a deep red stronghold. The new Republican senator will be businessman Bernie Moreno, a vehement Trump supporter. And early Wednesday morning, CNN projected that in Montana, Republican businessman Tim Sheehy, a retired Navy SEAL, defeated 3-term Democratic Senator John Tester. China hopes for mutual respect, peaceful coexistence with U.S. administration. China said it hopes for peaceful coexistence with the United States shortly before Donald Trump secured re-election as U.S. president. China's U.S. policy is consistent and clear. We view and handle our relations with the U.S. under the principles of mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and win-win cooperation, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning said Wednesday morning. Officially, the Chinese government presented a neutral stance on the election, calling it an internal matter of the United States. Meanwhile, Chinese state media has attempted to portray the vote as a reflection of deep social divisions and political dysfunction in the United States, amid broad sentiment in China that no matter who wins, tense bilateral ties are unlikely to improve. Elon Musk bet big on Trump. As his net worth soars, here's what he stands to gain and lose. No single business leader did more to support former President Donald Trump's candidacy than Elon Musk. But the billionaire and his business empire face both positives and negatives after Trump won back the presidency in Tuesday's election. Early Wednesday, investors were already betting that Donald Trump's win will also be a win for Elon Musk's major public holding, Tesla, sending shares of his electric vehicle maker up more than 12% in pre-market trading. That lifted the value of the 411 million shares of Tesla that Musk owns outright by more than $12 billion. Musk has donated nearly $119 million so far to a political action committee he set up to support Trump, according to Federal Election Commission filings. He's appeared with Trump at rallies and hosted a fawning interview with him on X, his social media platform. Early Wednesday, investors were already betting that Trump's win will also be a win for Musk's major public holding, Tesla TSLA, sending shares of his electric vehicle maker up 14% in pre-market trading. But there are risks for Tesla, even from Trump's victory. Much of Musk's massive net worth can be traced to the government support his companies, such as Tesla and SpaceX, have received over the years. Even if Vice President Kamala Harris had won, much of that money would have continued to flow. But even if some of the government support for electric vehicles is now trimmed or cut off, as is likely with Trump's victory, Musk's wealth will remain firmly intact. In fact, Tesla could benefit if government support for EVs ends. European leaders have emphasized ties with the U.S. as Trump wins election. European leaders have emphasized Europe's close ties with the United States on Wednesday, posting early congratulations to Donald Trump as it became evident that he was going to win the U.S. presidency. The leader of the European Union, Ursula von der Leyen, warmly congratulated Trump on his victory nearly 2 hours before CNN projected his win. The president of the European Council, Charles Michel, also stressed the EU and the U.S. enduring alliance and historic bond. The leaders of France, Germany, and Spain are among several European leaders to congratulate Trump. Italy's president, Giorgia Meloni, who heads a hard-right administration, said Italy and the United States are sister nations, linked by an unshakable alliance, common values, and a historic friendship. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, an ally of Trump, meanwhile called the win the biggest comeback in U.S. political history. Separately, the UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer said he was looking forward to working with Trump in the years ahead and continuing the special relationship between the two countries. Britain's foreign minister, who described Trump as a woman-hating, neo-Nazi sympathizing sociopath in a 2018 article, was more diplomatic in his congratulatory post on X Wednesday. While both leaders congratulated Trump, France's President Emmanuel Macron pledged to work alongside the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz towards a stronger Europe given the new context of a likely Trump presidency. We are going to work for a more united, stronger, and more sovereign Europe in this new context. By cooperating with the United States of America and defending our interests and our values, Macron said Wednesday in a social media post. NATO's Secretary General, former Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte, said that Trump's leadership will again be key to keeping our alliance strong. In congratulatory tweet sent before Trump was confirmed winner of the U.S. presidential vote, Rutte said, "I look forward to working with him again to advance peace through strength through NATO." With the re-election of Donald Trump, Ukraine may soon have to adjust to a dramatic reduction in U.S. support that could have a decisive impact on the war with Russia. Throughout his campaign, the Republican president-elect and his running mate, J.D. Vance, have cast strong doubts on continued U.S. commitment to Kyiv as the war drags on more than 2.5 years after Russian forces invaded. Moreover, Trump has made comments that suggest the U.S. could pressure Ukraine into an uneasy truce with Russia. Trump's victory comes at a precarious moment in the conflict for Kyiv. Russia has steadily been making gains in the eastern Donbas region, which Russia's President Vladimir Putin aims to capture in full. Ukraine's Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrskyi said the situation on the front line remains difficult and certain areas require constant renewal of resources of Ukrainian units, in a statement on Telegram Saturday morning. Meanwhile, Russia is understood to be bolstering its manpower with North Korean forces. As many as 10,000 North Korean troops are in Russia's Kursk region and are expected to enter combat against Ukraine in the coming days, U.S. officials have warned. Read more about what Trump's victory could mean for U.S. support for Ukraine here. Republican lawmakers congratulate Trump on re-election. Republicans in Congress are congratulating Donald Trump on his historic re-election. House Speaker Mike Johnson said in a statement, "With President Trump back in the White House, there is no obstacle too great and no challenge too difficult." Senator Lindsey Graham called on Special Counsel Jack Smith to end his federal investigations into Trump. To Jack Smith and your team, it is time to look forward to a new chapter in your legal careers as these politically motivated charges against President Trump hit a wall, Graham posted on X.com. The Supreme Court substantially rejected what you were trying to do, and after tonight, it's clear the American people are tired of lawfare. Bring these cases to an end. The American people deserve a refund, he said. Senator John Thune said on X, "The incoming Senate Republican majority will work hand-in-hand with the Trump-Vance administration to lower costs for families, secure our southern border, and renew America's energy dominance." Earlier, CNN projected that Republicans will win control of the Senate. It remains unclear which party will hold the majority in the House. Senator John Cornyn said in a statement, "I'm confident President Trump will hit the ground running to restore the office of the president to what it should be, one that keeps the American people safe and prosperous." Cornyn added, "Come January, we must be ready to confirm his nominees, pass a budget, address our debt, extend the Trump tax cuts, and reverse Kamala Harris' disastrous border security policies." A peek into Trump's second term, which will look nothing like his first. Donald Trump's election victory will return him to the White House, but both his allies and detractors have made clear his second time around will look nothing like the first. With the Republican Party now entirely his, its anti-Trump figures banished for good, Trump will enter the Oval Office with both the experience of having done the job before and a wealth of resentments over how he believes the system failed him. Figures who once hoped to act as stabilizing forces, including a string of chiefs of staff, defense secretaries, a national security advisor, a national intelligence advisor, and an attorney general, have abandoned Trump, leaving behind a string of recriminations about his character and abilities. They've been replaced by a cohort of advisors and officials uninterested in keeping Trump in check. Instead of acting as bulwarks against him, those working for Trump this time around share his views and are intent on upholding the extreme pledges he made as a candidate without concern for norms, traditions, or law that past aides sought to maintain. Trump's axis of influence has shifted greatly since he left office in January 2021. While his daughter Ivanka Trump and her husband, Jared Kushner, were once prominent campaign surrogates and senior White House staffers, they've since stepped away from the daily churn of politics. Ivanka Trump has made clear she has no plans to return to the West Wing, and while Kushner has been involved in the transition efforts, sources familiar with his thinking said he is unlikely to leave his private equity firm. Instead, Trump has found himself relying on people like Donald Trump Jr., Elon Musk, and Susie Wiles throughout his third run for the White House. Harris' campaign will need time to process strengths and weaknesses. As the nation waits to hear from Vice President Kamala Harris Wednesday morning, those close to her are calling for her campaign to be allowed the space and time to process their tremendous loss. "Please give the Harris campaign time to define their own strengths and weaknesses," said a source close to the campaign. Going into election night, Harris' team voiced confidence in multiple pathways to reach 270, and they maintained they made a strong case when it came to offering the country a new generation of leadership, restoring reproductive rights, and warning against the threat. In their view, a second Trump presidency would portend for the country. As the election results convey, those arguments did not win the day. Here's where Harris' campaign went wrong. It was supposed to be everything short of a free ad, a panel of women not containing their excitement to welcome Kamala Harris, ready to introduce her to their committed daytime audience of exactly the type of women the vice president's campaign always hoped were going to be critical to her base. It was a moment that encapsulated one of the biggest challenges facing her campaign, which in the end proved insurmountable. What, if anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years? Co-host of ABC's The View, Sunny Hostin asked Harris, looking to give her a set for her to spike over the net. "There is not a thing that comes to mind," she said. Even Harris realized she had a problem, trying to adjust a moment later by saying she would put a Republican in her cabinet. Aides didn't wait until Harris was off the set to start trying to clean it up. A Democrat who had spoken with her told CNN at the time that she didn't want to name her differences with President Joe Biden, including a higher capital gains tax rate, a bigger child tax credit, and a tougher border policy, because she thought it would look disloyal to the man who had picked her as his running mate and then stepped aside for her. The thud fell in a campaign already struggling with a listless October, which had replaced the late summer exuberance and a September debate that nearly every political observer other than Donald Trump acknowledged she crushed. As aides new to the Harris orbit exerted control, she struggled with preparation. She grew hesitant, losing some of the confidence and swagger that had defined the early weeks of her reintroduction to the country. Aides who had successfully pushed her out of her comfort zone earlier in the year felt like they were running into the kind of walls she used to put up. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel Jaxcey N24. Thank you for watching.